My guest is the distinguished actor, writer, and one of the few people who's been to outer space, Mr. William Shatner. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us, Mr. Shatner.
Oh, it's my privilege. You guys, you've got this wonderful radio show that goes to several cities that I'm going to be visiting, and it's great to be able to get the word out.
You're going to be, I want to get this straight, Wednesday evening, Charleston, West Virginia. Then it'll be Thursday in Fort Wayne, and then New Jersey and Atlanta. You'll be in Milwaukee, Detroit, and then Indianapolis.
And the other part of that is because going to an airport and getting on an airplane, there's never a direct flight, so you got to go to another airport, another airplane. I'm driving. I've got a couple of guys who work the show with me, and we jump in a car. We're going to jump in a car every night. Curtain comes out about 10:30. We're out of there about 11:30 at night, and we're going to drive from city to city. In one case, it's like 300 miles. So we'll get there in the morning. I'll lie down as best I can to do the show that evening in one of the cities that you guys reach.
You can obviously hear the unmistakable voice of Mr. William Shatner, a voice with a certain gravitas, one might say, which leads us to the question of gravity. I was just reading a great article you wrote.
It's pulling on me even as we speak.
I read this great article that you wrote about the overwhelming sadness and then hope that came over you with your famous space flight on Blue Origin. Can you give us just a little bit of a taste of that?
The story has got a profundity to it that is difficult to reach in a few minute interview.
Sure.
But it for me, I went through an evolution of emotions from like hysterical joy, being weightless, and looking out the window, and then realizing the black of space was death, and the beauty and the light of the earth was life, and the sadness that can invoke, and the sadness for the earth as we are sending it into extinction. So all those things assailed me as I came down, and I didn't know what it was, and I had to think it. I had to think it through. It took me several days to kind of wonder what am I going through here, and so it's part and parcel of something I'll talk about. And obviously, in a short time like this, I can't make it.
Sure.
I can't tell you the details. I will, though, in a theater near you, near many of the cities you reach. I'm coming to your town with a movie, The Wrath of Khan, perhaps the best of the Star Trek movies I was in, and it's been refurbished and resounded, and it looks great, sounds great, and of course it'll be on the big screen, and then I'll come out, and the shock for everybody of the movie that was made like 40 years ago, and then I come out 40 years later, that alone is good for a laugh of about 10 minutes. In fact, that's worth the price of admission.
Well, we're so glad that you're able to do this. When you make a movie like that, do you take the time to have a diary going so you can talk about it later, or do you just have to reach back into your memory to talk about it?
That's a really good idea, and I don't know about a diary. I would have kept or should keep a journal. Even electronically works best. I mean, you just take your phone and dictate it, which I do it all the time. No, I didn't keep a journal. And in fact, early on, several years ago, one of the publishing companies asked me to write about my experiences in Star Trek, and I couldn't remember any of them. So what I did is I went around to other cast members and said, God, what do you remember? And they would say, do you remember that time when... And then they would jog my memory and say, yeah, I do remember that. And I wrote a whole book of people's whose remembrances joggled minds. I have no memory of much of this stuff. I was blundering on, filled with all kinds of emotional problems on my outside life, death and destruction, and at the same time I'm shooting the film.
Wow. Once again, our guest, of course, is William Shatner. And Mr. Shatner, besides being a very fine actor and writer, is a horseman, an equestrian of some distinction. I have a silly question for you. Have you, in the course of your horse career, named a lot of horses referencing either Star Trek or outer space or anything that has to do with your career?
No, none of the horses. But I don't at the moment breed Dobermans, but I did, and I have two breeding dogs here with me, Dobies, and so my interest has been in Dobermans, and and on occasion, if they're good enough, to show them. So many years ago, I did show a Doberman at Westminster, and his name was Kirk. And Kirk came in second in his class. I almost won the Doberman class at Westminster, and I campaigned a dog that's with me now. His name is Macchiato, and he's a champion in so few shows. And because dogs, the reward, the reward you get if you win a small show is not as big, good, valuable as a dog that has a show that has a lot of dogs in it. So it goes 0.1 through 0.5 being the most dogs. So my Doberman male at the age of, 13 or 14 months, won a 5-point show, and he's a great champion.
Well, that's great to know. Are you still active in the world of horses? Someone was just telling me the other day that they saw one of your horses at an event over the weekend. So,
oh yeah. I am very active. Not only am I active competing, I put on a horse show every year called the Hollywood Charity Horse Show. It's a benefit. It's a charity horse show, and the charity benefits children and veterans. A lot of the charities using horse therapy,
sure.
Hippotherapy it's called, which seems to have a magical effect. I know it has a magical effect. Why is somewhat mysterious, although I think it was Winston Churchill who said the outside of a horse is good for the inside of a man. We prove that all the time with this hippotherapy.
Yeah, I've actually experienced it with my daughter. It's wonderful.
Have you really?
Yeah, I have indeed. Yeah.
Then you totally understand that the magnificence of the horse, even if it's a pony to a kid, is fantastic. Get them to move, and so I've seen children talk who wouldn't talk and move who couldn't move. It's been a miraculous many years. I've had the charity on for about 35 years, so I've been fortunate enough to encourage people and companies to give me money that goes directly to these charities. My charity has no expense to it at all. What few expenses there are taken care of privately. So every penny you give the Hollywood Charity Horse Show goes to veterans and kids.
That is terrific. William Shatner, once again, live and in person, following a showing of The Wrath of Khan, and you'll be answering questions. Dare I ask, what is the question you get the most?
The question I get the most is the question I get the most.
You got me. You win.
But it's true. What is the question you get the most? Those questions you think, should I ask him? Maybe I shouldn't ask him. That's the question I get the most. But
what question would you like to answer the most? And I will leave on that note.
What time do we eat?
Oh, I'm glad you're back on Earth with a great sense of humor. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Shatner. It's always a great pleasure
to talk to you. I look forward to you coming to one of those theaters at your city.